How much syllabus? Entire July? I think earlier we have considered entire June. So whatever we have considered in the month of July. So all the things in the month of July. So okay, I think awards fine. So consider the entire July. The syllabus is whatever we have considered in the month of July. So let's recap what we have yesterday gone through. So we were looking into Jainism. Fine. So after seeing his personal life, right, we have reached to a point when he became Jaina, right, or Mahavira, or Arihanta, or Jitendra. Later on, he delivered his first sermon at a place Pava to his only 11 disciples, and these 11 disciples are known as Gandharas or Gandharvas. He founded a Jain Sangh. It is also known as Jain Commune. The doctrine of Jainism, like the doctrine of Buddhism, here there are three Ratnas called three gems of Jainism, which are called Samyak Shraddha, the first one, that is right faith, right, Vishwas. Then Samyak Gyan, right knowledge, right, so knowledge of Jain creed. Samyak Karma, called Achar, right, so practice of 5 O's of Jainism. And obviously, we have touched the 5 O's of Jainism, which are called Pancha Mahavartas, right, or the 5 O's of Jainism. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Aparigraha, and Brahmacharya. Right? Ahimsa, non-injury. Satya, non-lying. Asteya, non-stealing. Aparigraha, non-possession. Right? Sanjay करून ठेवू नका. Brahmacharya, chastity. Right? Or so the first 4 O's have been given by Parshvanath, 23rd Tirthankar, and the last one added in it. All these acquired and then just added one, that is Brahmacharya by Mahavira. Then we have considered the types of knowledge. There have been different kinds of knowledge. Right? Mati Gyan, which is nothing but the perception through a activity of sense organs. Shrut Gyan, the knowledge revealed by scriptures. Audhi Gyan, perception. It's a clairvoyant perception. Manaparayay Gyan, telepathic knowledge. Keval Gyan, omniscience. Right? You know everything, right? So that is what you can always consider. Fine. So that is Keval Gyan, that is omniscience. Then we have considered Sadvada, which is also called as Anekantvada. Right? It is nothing but theory of maybe or perhaps. So here you can consider it as theory of plurality, or multi-sidedness. So judgments are necessarily relative, conditional, and limited, and it is the fact. So in this case, absolute affirmation or the absolute negation, both are not useful, right? Rather, both turn to be wrong, right? Then the principles of Jainism preached by Mahavir, right? Preached by Mahavira, and consider. So first one is he had rejected the authority of Vedas and Vedic rituals, right? Vedic rituals, uh, most important point in this. And he did not believe in the existence of the God. He believed in karma and transmigration of the soul, right? Transmigration of the soul. Right. Then laid a great emphasis on equality. That is what you can always consider. As like Buddhism, Buddhist literature, here there is Jain literature. Right. You can have 12 angas, it's 12 upangas, 10 parikarnas, 6 Cheda Sutras, 4 Mula Sutras, 2 Sutra Granthas, right? And some other text, Kalpa Sutra, Bhadrabhavu Charita, and Parishist Parvan. Right? So these are some of the Jain literature or Jain text. Later on, we have considered its different sects, which has 2 sects, as Shvetambas and Digambas. Right? So Shvetambas, those who put on white robes, and Digambas, those who wear stark naked, right? Completely naked. There have been different kinds of architectures, as like caves called gufas. Example, Udaygiri and Khangiri. Dilwara temple, Tejpal temple in Mount Abu, the temples at Ginnar, the temples of Pavapuri temple, Rajgraha temple, right? The statue of Gomteshwar at Shawan, Belgonda. Right? So these are the different kinds of architectures. Now, patron we have considered its patron. So patron in North India. So Nanda, Bimbisar, Ajatshatru, Udayan, right? So Bimbisar, Ajatshatru, and Udayan to the Haryana, belonging to Haryanka dynasty, and Nanda. Right? So these were the great patrons. Later on, Chandragupta Maurya had been patron of this Bindusar, right, of the Maurya dynasty. Then Pradyota from Avanti and Karavela from Kalinga. So these had been the patrons as far as North India or the north side of India is concerned. In South India, Ganga dynasty, Kadam dynasty, Solanki, Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas. So these had been the patrons, right? Rather, you can consider royal patrons. Royal patrons. Right. Now, I think this is the end of what you can consider the Maurya, Jainism, that is religious movements. Fine. So, after Nanda dynasty, after Dhananand, which dynasty is being considered? Fine. So, that we will consider. So, let's consider the Maurya period. Maurya period. So its time duration you can consider from 322 BC to 185 BC. Right. So Dhananand was defeated and right, by Chandragupta. So in 322. Fine. Now, as far as Maurya period is concerned, here very first question comes in, right, as like for every other, but as far as Maurya is concerned, here it is essential because in this time period you had different kinds of sources. So very first one is the sources of Mauryan history. From which sources the Mauryan history is being originated or the Mauryan history is being studied and analyzed. Right. So there are different kinds of sources. Right. So very first point you can consider is the sources of Mauryan history. Mauryan history. So what are the sources? As you know, the sources of history, there are two kinds of sources, right? So first is literary sources. First is literary sources. So same will be applied for Mauryan history as well. So here again you can have two sources. First is literary sources, and obviously second will be the archaeological sources. So what you have in literary sources, right? So in literary sources, very first thing you do have is the Kautilya's Arthashastra. Kautilya's Arthashastra. Kautilya's Arthashastra. Right. So Kautilya's Arthashastra. So it is the most important literary source for Mauryas. So what it was? So it is a treatise on government and polity. What is Kautilya's Arthashastra? It's a treatise on government and polity. Government and polity. So it gives a clear and methodological analysis of political and economic conditions of Mauryan period. Right? It gives clear and methodological analysis of political and economic conditions. Right? So what Kautilya's Arthashastra gives clear and methodological analysis of what? Analysis of two things. One is political and obviously second is economic. Political and economic conditions in Maurya period. Fine. So this is the first literary evidence, which is the source of Mauryan history. Second one is Megasthenes Indica. So here Kautilya is author. Likewise, here there is the Megasthenes. Right, Megasthenes. Yes, E apostrophe. Yes, Megasthenes Indica. Right, Megasthenes Indica. So who was the Megasthenes? Megasthenes was ambassador of Seleucus Nicator in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Right. Fine. So Megasthenes was ambassador right of Seleucus Nicator in court of Chandragupta Maurya. So he had written something, right? So Chandragupta Maurya. Right? So he had written a book, Indica, that is called Megasthenes Indica. Likewise, Kautilya's Arthashastra. Right. Now, here in Indica, okay, in Indica, it is being about the administration, right? So Indica refers to Mauryan administration. Mauryan administration. Right. Then the some other points were also there, likewise caste system or absence of slavery and usury, right? So, but most one is the, or as far as our interest is concerned, Mauryan administration. Fine. Then there had been another literature whose author is Vishakha Datta. Vishakha Datta's Mudra Rakshasa. Mudra Rakshasa. Mudra Rakshasa. Right. So this one, though it was written in latter period, that is in Gupta's period, but it describes how Chandragupta Maurya get Chanakya's assistance to overthrow the Nandas. Right. So beside this, it is also giving an excellent account of prevailing socio-economic conditions. So what it is, it gives, Mudra Rakshas gives an excellent account of the prevailing socio-economic conditions. Right. This had been. Then there have been some Buddhist literature, right? So which reveal the picture of socio-economic conditions of Mauryan period. Right. So here again you can consider. So see, by and large, what I wanted to tell you is what about the literary sources of Mauryan history. Right. So these are, okay, I can consider here Buddhist literature. I think Buddhist literature. Right. You know, as I said, we have mentioned and I have said that Deepvamsa and Mahavamsa. Right. So Deepvamsa and Mahavamsa describes the part played by Ashoka in spreading Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Right. So Ashoka was belonging to Maurya dynasties. Right. So you can consider. And again, there is a Tibetan Buddhist text called Divya Vadana, which gives information about Ashoka and his efforts to spread Buddhism. Okay, so Buddhist literature, I can name here two names called Zakatas, the first text, right? Zakatas. Then second, I can consider here is Deepvamsha and Mahavamsha. Right. So Deepvamsha and Mahavamsha. So what these two are talking, or what these two are giving you. So part for the role, I don't know what happened. Part played by Ashoka in spreading Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Right. And Jakatas reveal general picture. Reveal general picture of socio-economic conditions. Socio-economic conditions. Right. So these are the okay, I can mention one more here. That is Tibetan text. Tibetan text. Whose name is Divya Vadana. Divya Vadana. Divya Vadana. Fine. So it gives the information about, right, gives information about Ashoka and his efforts to spread Buddhism. Now see, these were some of the literary sources. Fine. If anybody wants, you can. These were some of the literary sources. Then what about the second one? Obviously, it is archaeological source. Done? Now, obviously, the second source is archaeological sources. Archaeological sources. Second one is archaeological sources. Now, what are these sources or what these archaeological sources? Right. So here you can have Ashokan edicts and inscriptions. Right. So instead of only writing edicts and inscription, that will become general. I will write it as the name with name Ashokan edicts and inscriptions. Right. So this is the first, right, source, archaeological source. So there are rock edicts, pillar edicts, and cave inscriptions. Right. So in this case, you have rock edicts, pillar edicts, and cave inscriptions. Right. Rock edicts, pillar edicts, and cave inscriptions. Fine. Now, here, see, these are the these edicts and inscriptions are located